Let's go. Welcome everyone to ThursdAI, December 5th. Our first show in December, folks. Let's go, December 5th. It's a big day today. And I want to say hi to my co-hosts. Welcome Jan Peleg, welcome Wolf from Ravenwolf, and welcome everybody who joins the show, who saw the title and know what we're going to talk about firsthand, because we have breaking news. We often have breaking news on Thursday. In fact, the reason why we're called ThursdAI is this exact reason. For folks who are new here, who just stepped in just because they just saw and said, hey, what is this O1 thing, O1 Pro, and haven't ever heard about ThursdAI, we started the show and we called it ThursdAI when GPT-4 dropped almost 2 years ago. Who can believe this? So we're going to talk about this today. Definitely a big day. I think this warrants the big button. Let's go. AI breaking news coming at you only on ThursdAI. All right, AI breaking news coming at you ThursdAI. What is this breaking news? Folks, today we know of a new thing that we didn't know about 30 minutes ago. As you can see, we know that OpenAI is about to announce that they have a new model that they're going to give all of us. The model is going to be called O1 Pro. In fact, if you go to ChatGPT right now, O1 Pro is already available to many folks. We don't know the details yet, so hopefully during the live stream they will give us some more details. But we knew all along that the O1 reasoning model that we got from them, we only got the preview. The actual full model is significantly stronger. We saw this in the evals that they've released. And so today we actually got some access. So if you right now go to the ChatGPT interface and you choose O1 preview, you most likely, some of you, maybe not folks in Europe, as always, Europe unfortunately gets some stuff less. Wolfram, I'm sorry. You will see this thing that says requesting access to Pro, and this will show you an O1 Pro interface, and it will think likely for longer, and the thought reasoning, the reasoning stuff will show up. Wolfram, did you already get this? Yam, did you already get this? Did you guys already saw this for yourself?
I got it on the chat, but I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, we still are lacking the details of differences. So how about we start the show? So we started the show with OpenAI's news and breaking news, but there's also so much to talk about today on the show. So I think that now that we've gotten the breaking news out of the way, I think that we will do our regularly scheduled conversation, and then in an hour we'll tune in to the OpenAI live stream, watch it together, and then do a proper commentary about the stuff that they legit officially announce. How does that sound? Today's show is going to be, I think, more interactive than regular ones, because we're doing a watch party, we're watching it together, and all of this is getting posted on ThursdAI, the podcast, which you can get at everywhere where you get your podcasts. We have 5-star ratings across Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Help us keep this rating going. I think that now it's time for the regular. Let's talk about what is kind of the TLDR, the stuff that we're going to cover in this week's ThursdAI. Meanwhile, I already said hi to Jan Peleg and Wolfram. LDJ is the latest edition. I think we'll have one more guest joining us, and then we can dive in. LDJ, welcome. You want to give folks a quick hello and say who you are and what you're doing in day-to-day for folks who haven't heard from you?
Yeah, sure. My name's LDJ. I also go by Luigi. That's my real name. And I previously worked at Nous Research. Before that, I did some audio AI work. And overall, my research is mostly involved now in things like synthetic data generation, dataset development, multimodality, and just training generally capable models, and mainly doing open source work.
Amazing. And the freaking co-host here on ThursdAI, which is awesome. Very appreciated. Deep commentary always, and many banger breaking news as well. Folks, so we're going to start with open source generally, but also open source LLMs, because in contrast to OpenAI, we're also getting a bunch of open source stuff. So this week was super exciting from a decentralization standpoint, not only because Bitcoin hit 100K yesterday. I have to celebrate this. This is crazy to think about, but also decentralization, because Two big decentralized LLM training efforts are happening simultaneously. All of them for friends of the pod. This is crazy. DiStRo and Dima from Nous Research is training right now. I think it's finishing training right now. It literally finished like an hour ago. We can actually go and watch this live. And Prime Intellect 1, 10 billion parameter, has finished training and is now in post-training with RCAI, also friends of the pod. Maybe we'll have some folks from RC hop on and talk to us about the post-training. But definitely after post-training is done, we're going to talk about Intellect 1. So decentralized LLMs, where it's getting trained across the world, I think is going to be huge. And we're going to cover this because I think that's like super awesome. We actually have Lucas on here. Lucas, we're just doing the TLDR, but if you want to unmute and say hi to folks, Lucas, now would be a good time.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Lucas, I run the labs team at RC. And yeah, I'm happy to talk about Intellect 1 and what went into that post-training. But yeah, that finished. We released that last Friday.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
It's out. People can use it. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll do like a 5 minutes because we have a super busy show, but it's awesome to have you here with us, Lucas. And then this is in the open source LLMs. We also have another friend of the pod release from this week. The open source LLMs is on fire this week. A reasoning model. Folks, this is, I think, for the third week in a row where we talk about reasoning models. And today we're going to talk about reasoning models from a big lab. Obviously, O1 Pro is a reasoning model. It's probably the best in the world reasoning model that's seeing the light of day, but also an open source reasoning model 8B from Ruliad. It's called Deep Thought 8B. It's a transparent reasoning model where you can see the reasoning traces as they happen. You can actually join them and guide them as well from friends of the pod as well. So we're going to show you and play with this live. So that's super cool. Ruliad Deep Thought 8B. Going forward in open source, even though it's not LLMs necessarily, two huge things that happened in the world of open source. Tencent, a Chinese company, open sourced HYVideo, which looked like a video model, but in fact, it was way more than just a video model. It did all these like crazy things, including puppeteering, including animation of a character. We're going to show all of this. This is an open source video model. Currently text to video, I think image to video is coming. Video to video is coming as well. It's beating Luma and Runway ML, Gen 3 and Luma 1.6. It's an open source world kind of model that's beating proprietary models right now. It's hard to run this on your consumer hardware because it's heavy requirements, but it's quite crazy that an open source model beating Luma and Runway. It's competing with almost Sora. Maybe we'll get Sora today and we'll be able to compare, but it's quite something. Honestly, this model is all over the place. It does it generates audio. What? It's crazy. It does like Foley. Do you guys know what Foley is? It does Foley. And so that's one thing in open source. Another thing in open source, FishSpeech 1.5. It's a multilingual zero-shot instant voice cloning text-to-speech model with low latency. This thing is crazy. It's only 500 million parameters, but it gets number 2 in the TTS arena in Hugging Face on preliminary results. Number 2. Number 1 is 11 Labs. This gets number 2 on top of Play.ht, on top of some other folks. Open source model, you can run this. Non-commercial only yet, but still, you can run this on your own. You can clone your voice, and this is number 2 right now. Friend of the pod, Technium from Nous Research just posted, why isn't there an open source model that matches 11 Labs, and then the same day FishSpeech was released. So also open source. So crazy things happening in open source. We're going to cover all of them as well. In big companies and API, folks who are not used to this like stream of consciousness, by the way, this is just the TLDR. We're going to actually cover all of this after the TLDR thing. This is just to keep you engaged and give you like a super brief update of everything that happens. You're not meant to catch all this necessarily, so don't fret. Amazon announced Nova series of foundational models at AWS reInvent. Nova, I think they announced like 7 or 8 models, and we're going to chat about what this means from Amazon, given that Amazon is also a huge investor in Anthropic, and we're going to talk about their benchmarks and evals and maybe some folks who already tried them. Google, we're now in the area of big companies, so we're covering big companies. Google has showed something quite incredible with GENIE2, which creates playable worlds from a picture, which was quite insane. And we're going to not play with this. I wish we had access. But we're going to show and talk about how incredible this is for simulating playable, gameable environments. Kind of close to this also, there was the World, what is that one? World Labs from Fei Li also released their example of taking one image and turning this into the walkable 3D environment as well. So we have 2 world building models in the big companies in the same week. Also from Google, I found it super exciting. I don't know if it's necessarily super interesting for folks. GenCast from Google is a diffusion model that beats state-of-the-art in weather prediction. I found it incredible that now generative AI is also beating weather prediction, and it's now like the top-of-the-line weather prediction with accuracy, specifically accuracy and speed. I really want to talk about this and highlight a few things as well. This is from Google DeepMind, and it's also open source. You know what? I'm actually going to move this to the open source area because Google open sourced this GenCast model and data, and it's a diffusion model. And this is super, super cool. It's not an AI art, but the same process that they use in the AI art, diffusion. I think it's a diffusion transformer. Not sure. Maybe just a diffusion.
It's even more interesting. It's really merging the thing of autoregressiveness and diffusion models, like really showing you that diffusion models are like predicting video over time when you think about it.
You're so we'll definitely
an image over time.
You give me even more
extremely
exciting.
Extremely interesting.
We definitely need to dive into this because this is crazy. This is crazy. Predicting the world is crazy. In this week's buzz is the corner where I talk about everything, weights and biases. We have exciting news this week. We've the LLM observability and evaluation framework that we are working hard on. We've was announced to be in GA, in general availability. What this means, I'll tell you in a bit, just before the live stream for OpenAI. But very exciting. Many folks work on this very hard. And today, like this week, it's a celebratory week for us. Weave is now in GA. It was announced also in AWS reInvent. And I'm very excited to specifically highlight one feature out of the many that was launched together in GA. I think that's most of the stuff that we wanted to talk about. And of course, all of this before the live stream for OpenAI, in which we're going to tell you, hey, O1 Pro and the Pro plan. So this is a TLDR of most things that I found very interesting. I would love the community to tell me if I missed anything huge in comments. If you guys saw anything huge that I haven't added here, please tell us, because in the show notes, we do send out more stuff that we cover here. Open source AI, let's get it started. We're going to get started today with, I think we're going to get started with watching how Nous, the research, the distributed run of DiStRo is happening. So I mentioned Nous DiStRo before, and I just want to show you this gloriousness. This is just beautiful. And when beautiful things happen, I want to show you beautiful things. So this is Nous DiStRo. If you go to distro.newsresearch.com, you'll see this like beautiful thing happening over here. Nous DiStRo is a decentralized 15 billion parameter training of a large language model using decentralization. You can see in this, how can I show this like a little bit better? Maybe like this, yeah. You can see that this training run, by the way, this was like public, so you could see this training run happening in real time almost. You can see the loss curves here. This kind of looks like the weights and biases dashboards of many people, by the way. You could see where the nodes sit around the world. You can see like the global status. There's some nodes here in North America. It looks like there's, Wolfram, help me out. Is it Germany?
Looks like Germany.
It looks like Germany.
It's tiny, but I think there are some news people from Germany, so could be.
Maybe it's in their house. So you can also see the model reasoning evals like happening in real time, and it looks like the reasoning went down a little bit at the end. You can see Hello Swag. So you can see like this model getting trained in real time. And actually, as always, as it happens on ThursdAI, because we're very good friends with Nous Research, for some reason, this model trained and finished training on ThursdAI as well. The thing behind, the very big thing behind the decentralization and the ability to run this in decentralized fashion is DEMO, decoupled momentum optimization. The foundational research underpins this system of training. The foundational research is crazy. So if you guys remember, folks who frequent ThursdAI may remember we had a chat with Mozilla and Bowen. Was Bowen here? I think Bowen was also here. We talked about this DiStRo effort back when it was a paper, when it was started to be a paper. And so decoupled momentum optimization already now became a paper. I will show you this paper. They have published this paper that underpins this back in November 29th. So what, 5 days ago, 6 days ago, that talks about how this is even possible. And this is a specific optimizer that maybe we've talked multiple times about beating Adam, and they're showing that they could beat this across different computers around the world. Specifically, the very interesting thing here, and maybe Yam, this is tapping you for this, or maybe LDJ, they have added Diedrich P. Kingma on this paper as well. So this paper, DEMO, is authored by Bowen Peng from Nous Research, Jeffrey who's Mozilla and Nous Research, and Diedrich Kingma. And Diedrich is...
He created the Adam optimizer. And
Yep.
that's the very popular optimizer used for a lot of pre-training methods. There's like the variation of that called Adam W that's commonly used. And it's funny just because if you look just even in this abstract, it says empirical results show that models trained with DEMO match or exceed the performance of equivalent models trained with Adam W, while eliminating the need for high-speed interconnects when pre-training large-scale foundation models. So it's the fact that they're making that statement while he is the author of Adam.
Yeah.
So or I think maybe the lead co-author or something along those lines, but one of the main authors. So yeah, I think that's a big deal. And he now works at Anthropic, actually.
It's incredible work from folks on Nous Research that highlight the ability to do this across the world and not in the same data center. And we've talked about this before. I'm very excited to see what happens with this model. Obviously, it just finished training, and once this model is going to finish post-training, we're going to definitely receive this very well. The model is going to be called, I think, Psyche. And yeah, we're gonna hear all about this once it launches, and we're gonna have the folks from Nous Research have this work here. I just wanted to highlight the first of all beautiful page that runs live. I working at Weights and Biases, I know a thing or two about beautiful dashboards. This looks beautiful, and shout out to folks at Nous, because the paper looks absolutely amazing, just top of the line. Having the co-author of the Adam optimizer on there, that just adds another stamp of credibility. 16 nodes for this run, all over North America and Europe. Yam, anything else to add here super quick before we move on to the next decentralized effort, which we have two on, which is crazy?
No, I'm reading the paper. I haven't been on X for a week, so I'm reading the paper.
I want to
right now.
benchmark it.
Yes, we'll definitely need the folks from Nous Research to give us something. All right, folks, I think that the second decentralized effort was actually completed before, and now we have the additional thing, and we have Lucas here. Lucas, maybe you want to just do the announcement super quick for, I think it's DLoco, right, and Prime Intellect?
Yeah, Prime Intellect's been a big partner of us at RC, and we helped them with the kind of compute for that training run, but yeah, it's very similar to in theory to the way that Nous is doing it, where I think it was 30 different GPU nodes across 3 different continents all around the world. It took about a month. We did about 1 trillion tokens for a 10 billion parameter model, whereas I think Nous is 15 billion parameter model for 100 billion tokens. So you're like trading off size and some form of where you're putting your compute, but results are good. The pre-trained results were around like early checkpoints of Llama 2. And then after post-training, it was fast. It was actually the biggest jump I'd ever seen in MMLU. You had it like the base model was 37 on MMLU. And then after post-training, it was 49, which I think is mostly a testament to a lot of the merging we do, and then a lot of the distillation we do in our post-training, because since it was based on Llama 3, we could use the same logits we'd extracted from 405B for some of RC's models. So we actually did a distillation on the Intellect 1 model as well. So it's a really promising time for decentralized training because we're a year behind. Like our benchmark scores are right at, we're matching Llama 2 13B.
Yeah.
And now that we know that it scales and that it can work, like the next step is just throwing more compute at it.
What
So
was
I'm excited.
challenging about this from your perspective?
It was from a technical perspective, like the Prime Intellect guys are going to be way better at talking about that. I think Nous could probably share some similarities too. But I think the most challenging thing, I think, going forward is just when you start looking at tensor parallelism right now. Like a lot of what you're dealing with right now is most of these runs, I believe, are using like H100s. So you write each card is like 80 gigabytes of RAM. And then in the 10 to 15 billion parameter range, you don't really have to shard the models across the GPUs. You only have to shard the data. And that's better from like a bandwidth perspective of just like the complexities of training. So when you start getting to like larger models where you're having to shard not just like, you can't have a distinct copy on each GPU. You have to have multiple copies across many different GPUs. I think that's where the complexity comes in. And I think that's something that both of these teams are trying to solve. And I think the fact that we have many different people trying to solve it and in a way that's collaborative and in the open and code is being shared, I think it's great because it's not just like we're watching OpenAI and Anthropic go after something and you just have to hope that each of them come to it in their own silos. Like it's people that can build off each other's work. It's really exciting. I'm really confident.
Awesome, dude. Thank you for hopping up and thank you for giving us more addition. I'm showing the table right now on the live stream. So we're looking at Intellect 1 Instruct, which is the model that you guys released and open sourced. MMLU 49.89, which beats Llama 2.7 and comes very close to Llama 13B a little bit, MPT as well. Yeah, looks like it's trailing a year behind, but it was trained distributed, was super cool. You guys
and on half as many tokens too, which talks about just it was 1 trillion tokens versus 2 trillion for Llama 2. So there's so many different ways we can catch up that give us a couple months. I think people will be pretty excited.
That's awesome. So shout out to RC, shout out to Prime Intellect for this distributed work as well. Great folks from RC. And Lucas, thank you for hopping up and telling us about your work. Definitely folks should give you a follow if they're interested in the incredible post-training work that you guys do. And we'll definitely hear more about stuff from this decentralized area. I just found it wonderful that like the two efforts pretty much finished like around the same time, and I wanted to talk about this. Not the first time that like multiple efforts happened around the same time, and we were able to cover those. The next thing in kind of the open source LLM is LDJ. This is the thing that you wanted to talk about, where we have also friends of the pod releasing a new reasoning model called Rulia DeepThought 8B. Rulia DeepThought, so chat Rulia DeepThought 8B. This is an open source model. We'll take a look at the Hugging Face in a second. This is a reasoning model that I think was based on Llama.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think it's based on Llama 8B, Llama 3.1 8B, and it's beating Llama 3.1 8B on math by just a little bit. But I think that the cool thing is that this is like a reasoning addition, reasoning fine-tune on top of Llama. And the very cool thing about this is that kind of the interface allows you to see the thinking and also guide the thinking. This is the thing that I loved the most. LDJ, what caught your eye about this model specifically?
If you look at the benchmarks, there's specifically in the like instruction following, which I assume is the instruction following eval benchmark, and they have some reasoning and encoding benchmarks there. It seems actually pretty comparable to 30B or even 70B models in those benchmarks that I saw. And I think it's like in certain ones, like maybe in like math or something, it's not quite there. Here, I could send you a link to the benchmark.
Yeah, I have the math benchmark, but yes, what do you want me to show?
But yeah, but then also on top of that, the fact that they have these extra additional type of settings that you can configure of how it actually does the reasoning process. And without having to retrain it or anything, you can just configure these settings on the fly. And that whole thing, I believe, is also open source that they're making available to everybody. So this isn't all, it's comparable overall on the average, at least in these benchmarks, to the Quen 72B. And even better in instruction following.
Yeah. I wish Quen Quill would be here. I love the comparison to O1 Mini. So this is on instruction following. We get 84 from DeepThought 8B on instruction following and 85 from O1 Mini. Very interesting. On reasoning, obviously the bigger models are like better reasoners, but this is an 8 billion parameter model that is beating Quen 72 billion parameter.
Now we finally have Qwen on a benchmark. We did talk about never benchmarking against Qwen, only if they beat it. But this is 2, not 2.5, by the way. So it's not the latest version of the Qwen.
Yeah, this is 2. This makes sense. But yeah, 2.5 is also here. Interestingly, in this benchmark, 2 is bigger than 2.5 on reasoning. So I don't know which reasoning they chose here. Yeah, on coding. Yeah. So this is an 8 billion parameter model. Obviously, this model has limitations. So I want to show on chat, and I'll talk about what's interesting also. Chat.ruliad. I want to show and talk about this for folks who are like just listening to us, because I think the interesting thing about this, again, with the Ice Cube, this is our go-to question right now. When I send this command, you can see the thinking process happening super quick. And again, unlike the O1 example of O1 preview, first of all, this model gets the answer incorrect. It gets like the option E, 11. Let's say, did it get at least the, yeah. Okay, so it shows us the reasoning here. So we got 8 steps or 9 steps going through, and you can see the actual reasoning here. I think the model, the developers from Ruliad, is that Pharrell, right, LDJ? Pharrell is one of them?
Yeah, Pharrell, Centex, Alpin. Those are the main 3 that I've personally interacted with.
Oh, amazing. Okay, I didn't know that the rest of the folks is also there. Sendex is part of it, and then Alpin is part of it. Huge friends of the pod are involved in Ruliad. Shout out to them. You should be on this while we present the main
yeah,
work.
here
Alpin was here. Well, we talked about, if you guys remember last week, Alpin was here. We talked about his being main character of Blue Sky for a second. And the thing that I wanted to say is that you can see the thinking process like very transparently here. But if you go to little settings, this is the thing that I liked. And I am pretty sure that folks that work in OpenAI O1, they have this like same mechanism in there. You can play around with like injections. And this is like what LDJ just said. Without retraining the model, you can change how these things work, and you can actually get to better results. So I'll give you an example. Because I know how to solve this problem with the ice cubes, I can tell the model to think about how long does it take for an ice cube to actually melt, and this would guide the answer to a good answer. I can actually choose. You can choose max routing. You can choose thought routing. You can say, if a rule was detected, then do something. But I can do max routing. I can say max reasoning steps. You can choose 15 reasoning steps. Basically, choosing reasoning steps is, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm hoping I'm not mistaken, is forcing the test time compute function to go. Let's actually put 50 reasoning steps, and then let's see again. Let me close this. I actually want to try again. Let's see if this actually is what this is. Let's see if it goes to 50 steps or no. No, it didn't go.
I think it sets a max cap of how much it's not allowed to go past.
Oh,
so if you set it to 5, then it won't go past 5.
Okay, so let's do 5 then. So it's not like hey, think for longer, which is what I want. It's not that.
Yeah, I think it's just a limiter of not thinking, making sure to not think too much. Too long.
Okay, so it's not what I wanted. But interestingly, in this UI where you can suggest reasoning steps yourself, where you can like help the model like reason, once I like helped it with a reasoning, like obviously like it started like thinking properly. So this is the thing that I love about this. You can inject into its reasoning process, not via prompt, but via these like reasoning steps. So that's pretty cool. And just the whole interface is pretty cool for reasoning models. I wish that we had this for other reasoning models as well. Wolfram, thoughts about this? Yam, thoughts about this? I wanted to hear your thoughts before we move on, and hear from LDJ as well, because you're like close to folks.
The model is in Hugging Face, so I wanted to download it, but I think you need custom inference software to make it work like that. So that's why I didn't get to check it out yet.
Yep, models on Hugging Face. Wolfram, the thing that you mentioned that you want to talk about, yes, please. I really want you to talk about this and then even show what you worked on. Please take your time, and I would love for you to talk about your research.
Probably the thing I'm most known for are the evaluations I did on Reddit last year and this year. And so that is how I got into the AI scene, because I was doing a lot of benchmarks and evaluations with some private data. And now I have started doing some MLU Pro benchmarks of multiple models. And so you start with one, then you add another. And in the end, it was a whole lot of models I was testing. So I did 59 benchmark runs in total. Yeah, should we bring it on the screen?
Yes, please.
Okay.
If you're ready. I will, while you bring this up, I will just say, Yam, you probably remember this. LDJ, you remember this. Before Wolfram joined the show as a co-host, when we talked about Vibes evals, we used to mention your work on the show multiple times. We used to say, hey folks, the way to evaluate models is we look at our X stream, we look at the subreddit for local llama, we talk amongst ourselves, we try it ourselves, and we frequently just looked, and the whole community in subreddit and local llama, when you posted one of your like in deep kind of like breakdowns, that's what people had got feelings for. So your research was like super valuable even before you joined the show. Obviously, after you joined the show, for us, this is amazing. We have one of the like bigger experts on researching models that we know and love, and now is part of the community, big part of the community. So we'll absolutely love to see you do your thing.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And I posted on Reddit as well. And so a lot of people were going, oh, you're back, welcome back. And someone even compared me to the bloke who did such a great job, if you remember him, the bloke who did all the models.
Of course, yeah.
And then he disappeared. And so they felt like that because I moved to X, actually. So I never disappeared. I just changed my main channels because here I can just post and I don't have to think what is the audience. I post, and if it's a good post, it gets retweeted. So I did that. So what I did is I started out with a lot of models. It was actually Mistral's large models that were interesting to me because I thought the new large isn't as good as the old one.
Could you zoom in a little bit though?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
This is the outcome, the ranking, if you will, of all the benchmarks I did. And I was going for the Mistral. I can see if I can zoom even further. Yeah, the Mistral large 2411 is the new one. And 2407 is the old one. So the old one was a little bit better. I ran every benchmark twice to make sure there is, it's not just too much of an outlier. So I put an error bar on it. So you see if I did 2 or even more on some models. So you have the lowest score and the highest score they got. And the bars are ordered according to the average score. And the goal was to find out which model works the best on my system. I wasn't just going for the unquantized versions because most Hugging Face leaderboards are doing that anyway. So you always get the results, and the model creators do the benchmarks as well. So what I was interested in is how do they run on my system? I only have 48 gigabytes of VRAM, which is average, I would say. A lot of people have less and are going for the smaller models. But it was my goal to test it on my system and see how it scores there, and then do comparisons. And the most interesting thing is which happened here, and which is why I highlighted the Quill models, QVQ or Quill as they pronounce it, is because that model is a reasoning model, the first open White's reasoning model we ever had. They released it, so I decided to test it, and I found something very interesting because the model, even if you take, this is Excel 2 format, because it's very fast, and so the biggest quant you can use with it is 8-bit. And with 8-bit, the model got even better score than Mistral Large, just below the older GPT-4o. It's also interesting. There are so many interesting things you find when you do these benchmarks, like why is the older GPT-4o doing so much better, or noticeably better than the current one? And the current one gets 100 tokens per second, which is a lot faster than the old one. So I guess it's a quantized model. But those are things you notice when you do the benchmarks. Anyway, getting back to that, so the Quill model with 8-bit is very good, but if you take even half the size, 4-bit, 4.25-bit to be exact, and you raise the number of tokens it is allowed to generate, it gets even better. So what I noticed, I checked the benchmarks, what is the model outputting, and the MMLU Pro benchmark is limiting output to 2K tokens, which is normally plenty. So most models don't output so much. But this model is thinking so much, so it outputs a lot of tokens and then it gets cut off. So it gets a lot better scores if you let it think for longer, so let it write more, which is something everybody who is using the benchmark and hasn't changed the default is not seeing because they will cut the response short.
Wait, so say again, the default output is 2K?
Yeah, you can only, the model, you give it max new tokens, the parameter you give it. So it's 2K in the benchmark. So the benchmarking tool limits to 2K and the model is still thinking. It hasn't gotten to the final answer yet. So it gets cut short. And so it's much worse in the benchmarks. So once I set it to 16K, which is a lot, because the whole context of the model is 32K native, So the half of the context is already reserved for the benchmark. But now it got on the third place. It is just behind Claude Sonnet and GEMINI. And it's just an 8-bit model in this case. But it was really impressing me that way, because it is such a good model, and it's just a 32B
So 32 billion parameter model, after you gave it more time to think, like this is the reasoning model, right?
Yes.
Is on your benchmark, on the MMOU Pro benchmark, on, again, like your system, is getting 79, which is like third place, beating Athene 72 billion parameter, beating Quen 2.5, beating like the previous GPT-4o. Like,
Yeah,
this is quite
Claude
crazy.
Sonnet and GEMINI. So that was amazing. So that was something I didn't expect and I didn't know, but changing that was really unlocking its full potential. So that is important for people using it. Give it time to think. There's the token space to write into it. That is very important.
That's why so first of all, folks, I think this is another confirmation of this like test time compute scaling law. Basically, give the reasoning models more time to think. And LDJ, that's the kind of we need the Rulliad people here. This is the control that I wish I had in OpenAI, that I wish I had like in other places. This feels, once you have the open source, you are able to do this as well. Just give it more time to think. You can do this with prompt techniques as well. Like we've talked about this before. You can ask, when you ask regular models, not reasoning models, for step by step, you're doing this as well. But in this case, you're like, just like you said, you're triggering this from 4K to, you said 16K. That's incredible.
2K,
this
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a really cool thing about this too is that when you have these smaller models thinking for longer, then you end up being able to actually fit that in your VRAM. So you can actually do like local inference, and maybe you only have 16 gigs, or even a 4090 is only 24 gigabytes. You're not going to be able to fit like a 70B model in there. But then you can have a model like this that could maybe even get better results than those larger ones.
Yeah. So I'm really impressed with the Quill model. I'm not paid by Quen or anything. And I must say, I was never such a big fan of the Quen 72B, for example, because I'm using the model in German. So I was always going for the Mistral models because they were so much better in that case. But I have actually used the 32B model now in productive uses, where I had real work use cases where I was using Claude, and I was using ChatGPT 4o, and I was using Quill. And Quill was what I chose in the end as the result that was the best for my use case. So that has never happened with a local model. I love local models, but in production, I usually use the online models because they are still so much better. It's getting better now. But this was the first time where I was saying, wow. And funny, because we have been doing the Ice Cube challenge a couple of times now, I would like to show you what the model said when I put it. So that is an interesting thing, just so you see the response it got. It didn't get it right, but I will just open it here. It didn't get it right, but you see the thinking process, which is so interesting, because it was really interesting when I gave it that thing. So it started, how many whole ice cubes can be found in the pen at the end of the third minute?
Right.
Because this is too funny, because that is the reasoning you can see. You don't see what the O1 preview is doing, but here you can see it. So it was repeating the question, and then it started thinking about it. And it started immediately with, perhaps some have melted during the frying process. However, without knowing the rate of melting or any specifics about the frying process, it's impossible to determine exactly how many have melted. Then it continues thinking, and then it says, perhaps the frying is done separately from the ice cubes, and the ice cubes are just placed in the pan without being subjected to heat. That seems contradictory. And wait, maybe the ice cubes are placed in the pan, but the pan is not heated, so they don't melt, but it's frying a crispy egg, which implies that the pan is heated. So there's a contradiction here. If the pan is heated, ice cubes placed in it would melt. So it is really on the right track. But then it says, alternatively, maybe the ice cubes are placed in the pan, but not in contact with the heated part, so they don't melt, which is amazing. And then it says, this is getting too speculative. Perhaps the key is to focus on the number placed, not the number remaining whole. And then it starts the calculation we have seen. So it was so close, and then it went away. But I would love to see a 72B or an even smarter model doing this kind of reasoning. And we can do that locally. So that is, that is a promise that we have soon. Sonnet at home, I think.
Yep, Sonnet at home. That's what we're all waiting for. Wolfram, thank you so much for sharing with us your research and kind of the approach as well. I'm sure that folks love to see how you're thinking about this, how you're approaching this. Folks can find it. I added to the top of the space, and also we'll add this to the show notes as well. It's crazy to me. We talked about Quill, Quill, the model that basically you can run the reasoning model, the first reasoning model in open source. Today we talked about, which is the second one that you can run open source as well, which I haven't run locally. From now, you can have a comparable one. That's a smaller one, significantly smaller one. And now we have multiple reasoning ones. It feels like today is a lot of reasoning is happening, and we need like reasoning, I guess, evals for reasoning models as well. All right, folks, I think this covers the open source LLMs area. Let's talk about Nova. I think Nova, they didn't release this in open source, but I wanted to at least chat about this. AWS, Amazon actually stepped into finally the arena with a set of their own models, with foundational models. Actually, a few folks of our friends of the pod, like both Swix and Simon Wilson, both were like impressed with these models. So we can like actually go and look at what they said. Basically, let me go and do the introduction for Nova models super quick. Amazon announced a series of foundational models of theirs called Nova Micro, Nova Lite, which is multimodal, and Nova Pro, which is their high capability, and coming in 2025, Nova Premier. Those are like the series of their language models. They also announced like Canvas for image generation and Reel for video generation, also coming soon. So Amazon is, hey, we didn't have our own foundational models. Many people ask like, why? There's also the question of, hey, when is Alexa coming? Why is Alexa so stupid? And when is Alexa, like generative AI Alexa is coming? I just want to show how unimpressive this release was, where everybody talked about this. This is the benchmark table that you guys all know and love, where Amazon Nova, new foundation model, they released Nova and compared it to Claude, GPT-4o, Gemini, and Llama. And in the Nova column, their designers highlighted all the numbers for language understanding, MMLU, for reasoning, common sense, deep reasoning, mathematics, and Python generation, human eval, etc. And all of the numbers are bolded as though they're better than all the other numbers. But in fact, they're not better than any of the other numbers. They're better like only two of them, which is really confusing, very Amazon. So I actually found a person who went one by one and compared and highlighted where Amazon, the table that they should have released. Basically, their model that was just released is better only at instruction following by a little bit, and the translation, Flores 200, just also by a little bit, but everything else, obviously Claude is way better on every other topic. These models are not released anywhere. They're only available through Bedrock, through Amazon Bedrock, exclusive to Amazon Bedrock. And context length is pretty impressive. 300K, very impressive, honestly. If anything, a highlight here for Amazon is that obviously they're going to do scale. AWS is their like main go-through, and 200 plus languages. I think that's also very impressive. They have the translation for Flores 200. This is like the benchmark. 200 plus languages at 300K tokens context length. I think is very impressive. Basically, performance is like similar to Llama 3.1, not to Claude, GPT-4, or Gemini. And it makes sense for them not to compete with Anthropic because they're big investment in Anthropic. They don't want to undercut Anthropic as well. Something about watermarking capabilities from Amazon as well, and they could be fine-tuned. The biggest thing, the most important biggest thing is that comparatively, those models are now the cheapest models that you can play with, micro coming in at 3.5 cents per million input tokens and only 14 cents per million output tokens. That's cheaper than Google Gemini Flash. I think that this is like the thing that Simon Wilson was like the most excited about, specifically the price. So let's take a look at Simon Wilson's excitement. Our friend of the pod, Simon Wilson, who's been here multiple times. Where is his excitement? Yeah, his excitement is all about price specifically. And then he said, I had to check this number 3 times to make sure my calculations at 0.0136 cents per image. Per image prompt, because these models are multimodal as well. I could generate a text description of every photo in my 67,000 personal photo library using Nova Mini for $9. You can caption almost 70,000 picture personal library for $9. This is insane. Insane how multimodality, like we've been talking about multimodal. Do you guys remember that when we started ThursdAI, GPT-4 came out and the multimodality was yet to be released. Like GPT-4 was the first like multimodal model with image capabilities, and that feature was not released when ThursdAI was happened. It was like it was only announced and they only released 6 months later, and now it costs 0.0136 cents now to do image captioning, and it's basically free. It's ridiculous.
You know,
I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
Today may be the day where we get the cheapest AI and the most expensive in one day.
Wow, that's true.
Rumors are true.
That's absolutely true. If we get the most expensive AI, that's going to be insane. So yeah, Nova is from Amazon. It looks like Mistral is a little bit. I think Lincoln, a friend of the pod as well, commented that Mistral is still like a little bit cheaper. Mistral 3 billion parameter on their platform, but it looks like from the big players, it looks like this is the cheapest per. Oh, interesting. Claude 3.5 Haiku got a price drop yesterday as well. So this is the foundational models from Nova from AWS. I think this is most of the update. There's nothing else interesting there. The only other thing that there is interesting is Amazon announced guardrails, AWS guardrails. Yes, this one. I wanted to mention this because next week I'm going to talk to you about guardrails from Weights and Biases. Super briefly, I will also tell you that Amazon doesn't do just models, they do the whole holistic approach, right? Because this is like businesses trying to come at them. Amazon is trying to offer a full service, and guardrails is a very important piece of this service because many foundational models offer guardrails. Open source like models don't offer guardrails, for example, but sometimes you want to build guardrails of your own. Guardrails is the boundaries for toxicity and bias and different other things. So we will talk to you about guardrails and what those mean next week. I just wanted to mention that Amazon also released this, and they didn't only release models, they also released like a bunch of business tools around models as well for folks who are building with them. So that's it about Amazon. We have 8 minutes till the live stream, which I think we already have the link for. So let's go there and check. They're probably not going to start on time, but we're going to tune in on time as well. I think we'll talk about GENIE next. GENIE is super cool. What do you guys think? GENIE, I think, is super cool as well.
Yeah, GENIE, and then also World Labs announced something in the past couple of days too.
Yeah, very similar. So we'll start with World Labs because it feels like it's that, but less impressive a little bit. Dr. Lee, who's like super famous, founded World Labs, which is basically the whole idea is like to create world models. And basically they showed the first example of work where it's a system to generate 3D worlds from a single image. World Labs announced their work and showed an incredible system to show early results where you can interact with screens in the browser. Let's actually do that super quick. So folks who are like seeing our screen can see me interact with an image. There was an image, and now I can use my WASD keys like you would in a game and my mouse to actually move within the picture. You can see that I'm moving in like a 3D screen, and I can turn it around. And I think that when I turn around, most of it was actually generated. Yes, obviously, because we start with this picture, let's say. When I turn around, all of this is now generated. And I can move within this, and some boundaries of this, you can see there's like a parallax effect. So you can see like a 3D reconstruction. This is quite crazy. You can move left and right. You can see this is quite insane.
Imagine this in VR, where you can just walk through the landscape and explore.
Yeah. This is not super realistic. OpenAI just posted 12 days starts now. Let's make it sure that we're not missing this. And then, we'll make sure that we're not missing this. So this is from World Labs from Dr. Fei-Fei Li. Building world models, that's one. And GENIE from Google then released pretty much the same day. This is crazy how like things happen simultaneously. GENIE2 from Google, it's I think even more insane because while Dr. Fei-Fei Li allowed to generate a model and kind of walk a little bit in this, the GENIE2 model from Google allows for a 1-minute playable world from an image. They take an image that was generated with a Google Imagen 3, and they generate a playable world in it. It's quite crazy. For up to 1 minute, they have a character in there running, and they have so many worlds in there. So we can look at an example. Actually, we can look at those examples here. Oh, let me zoom out, sorry. Literally, it looks like a little bit of a Doom, but imagine like you generate just any image with a robot like standing, and it will generate like 3D structures. The things that they showed, that generates 3D structures, that generates like a boat on the water, so it generates physics on the water, it generates roads, it has long-term memory, so you can see like their system generates a structure, then you turn around and like it's behind you, then you turn back and the structure is still there. Like stuff like this, like insane stuff like this. Absolutely crazy. And the thing that to highlight here is that work will definitely help like robotics research and AGI research, because this would be trained within these worlds. Like these worlds will be created, basically simulations, and up to 1 minute these worlds will happen in there. Diverse environments will be created. Not to mention that soon the fidelity of these worlds will become very close to reality. But yeah, absolutely insane.
We will need this when we have AGI that does the job, so we can keep ourselves occupied.
Yes, absolutely. All right, folks, I think it's let's make sure that we're not missing OpenAI. I want to make sure that we're not missing OpenAI. I think they just posted the actual link, and I think it's going to take them like 5 minutes to actually start.
Hello, welcome to the 12 days of OpenAI. Every weekday, we are going to launch or demo some new thing that we built. Today, we actually have 2 things to launch. The first one is the full version of O1. We have been very hard at work. We've listened to your feedback. O1 is a pretty big step forward. It's also much better in a lot of other ways, but raw intelligence is something that we care about. Coding performance in particular is an area where people are using the model a lot. The second thing we're launching today, we're launching a new tier, ChatGPT Pro. And Pro has unlimited access to our models and also things like advanced voice mode. It also has a new thing called O1 Pro mode. So O1 is the smartest model in the world now, except for O1 being used in Pro mode. And for the hardest problems that people have, O1 Pro mode lets you do even a little bit better. One more thing about the Pro mode, one thing that people really have said they want is reliability. And here you can see how the reliability of an answer from Pro mode compares to O1, and this is an even stronger delta. And again, for our Pro users, we've heard a lot about how much people want this. ChatGPT Pro is $200 a month, launches today. Over the course of these 12 days, we have some other things to add to it that we think you'll also really love, but unlimited model use and this new O1 Pro mode.
Hi, I'm Hyungwon.
I'm Jason. And I'm Max. We're all research scientists who worked on building O1. O1 is really distinctive because it's the first model we've trained that thinks before it responds, meaning it gives much better and often more detailed and more correct responses than other models you might have tried. O1 is being rolled out today to all Plus and soon-to-be Pro subscribers on ChatGPT, replacing O1 Preview.
O1 model is faster and smarter than the O1 Preview model, which we launched in September. After the launch, many people asked about the multimodal input, so we added that. So now the O1 model live today is able to reason through both images and text jointly.
We also really think that O1 will be much better for everyday use cases. One piece of feedback we received about O1 Preview constantly was that it was way too slow. It would think for 10 seconds if you said hi to it. And we fixed that.
That was really annoying.
If you ask it a simple question, it'll respond really quickly. And if you ask it a really hard question, it'll think for a really long time. We ran a pretty detailed suite of human evaluations for this model. And what we found was that it made major mistakes about 34% less often than O1 Preview, while thinking fully about 50% faster. And we think this will be a really noticeable difference for all of you.
O1 is actually very strong, and on standard benchmarks like MMMU and MathVista, O1 actually has the state-of-the-art performance for those who want to push the model even further. And we're still working on adding tools to the O1 model, such as web browsing, file uploads, and things like that.
We're also hard at work to bring O1 to the API. We're going to be adding some new features for developers, structured outputs, function calling, developer messages, and API image understanding, which we think you'll really enjoy. We expect this to be a great model for developers and really unlock a whole new frontier of agentic things you guys can build. We hope you love it as much as we do.
That was great. Thank you guys so much. Congratulations to you and the team on getting this done. We really hope that you'll enjoy O1 and Pro Mode, or Pro Tier. We have a lot more stuff to come. Tomorrow we'll be back.
Yes, I made this joke this morning. The joke is this. Santa was trying to get his large language model to do a math problem, and he was prompting it really hard, but it wasn't working. How did he eventually fix it?
No idea.
He used reindeer enforcement learning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job, guys.
All right, folks.
That was great.
There you have it. We got a bunch of stuff. Let's talk about this.
So they did announce I think they announced the subscription, but just didn't say the price, right?
Yeah, I don't think.
They said it.
No, they did. It was 200. It's 200 a month.
Yeah, 200.
Okay, yeah.
200.
So in that case, I've been waiting for something where you could have less rate limits and also use the native interfaces while simultaneously just having to pay more. And I'm glad that I think Anthropic should do this too.
So we got some stats as well. They flashed it, but I was able to catch. So let's take a look. We got 2 new models, basically. That's what they're saying. I think that it's the same model, maybe with more thinking. Is that how I understood this? They just give us more test time compute in the Pro mode?
Think about 4 runs, and if all 4 give the same response, then it is accepted. So I guess it's something like that.
This is what I was able to catch. On competition math, we got O1 preview, previously getting 56 on AIME, and now O1 is getting 83%. It's getting close to solve 100% of competition math, folks. I'll just repeat this. O1, the reasoning model from OpenAI, the top one, the best one in the world, is getting close to solving 100%. Like, it's insane. This is O1. It's not O2. It's not O3. We just talked about kind of on the lower bound. And on competition code, O1 preview is 62. O1 is 89. Oh, we got more stats. Thank you, Wolfram. Let's open the actual thing. Oh, 1 second.
It would be interesting to compare head-to-head cases.
Oh, just run this ourselves?
It's a little bit expensive nowadays, but yeah.
Yeah. With Pro mode, if you pay $200 a month or Pro tier. Yeah, so we have competition math. Oh, okay. So now we have the 3 head-to-head. So the thing that I got was etc. So Pro mode is even stronger. Competition math gets 86 on competition code, 90 on Pro mode. So pretty much captures everything. And the PhD level science question, GPQA Diamond. Those are very hard questions, and you can see how hard they are because these models, preview, O1, and Pro mode, they barely improve. Still improve. 74 in preview, 76 in O1, and 79 in Pro mode. Those are very hard questions. GPQA Diamond is like Google proof question and answer for PhD level folks. Very impressive. The thing that Wolfram, that's what you said, right? O1 Pro mode, improve reliability. We use stricter evaluation setting. The model is only considered to solve a question if it. Oh, so it's not like inference. That's how they tested it. This is the eval that they're doing. They only solve a question if it gets it right 4 out of 4 attempts, not just 1. So they're making sure that the evals is correct.
That's a great approach.
Yeah,
you should do all evals 4 times.
Yeah, it's good for testing the reliability. That's like hallucinations and stuff. Yeah.
Pro users can access functionality by selecting O1 Pro mode. GPT will display a progress bar and set an in-app notification if you switch away to another conversation. That's also new. It thinks for so long that you don't need to be in there, which makes perfect sense. Like, why would you need to stay in there anymore? Where you can just go about your day, give it a hard problem, and just go about your day. Pro grants, I don't know what grants are.
They're giving it away for free, I think, to 10 people, so they can use it for medical stuff, which is a great thing. So I have to applaud them for that.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think, okay, so this is what we got. We got 2 new models. I did not get whether or not Pro preview is staying or we just got, preview is staying or we just got O1 now. Did I get access to this? Did you get this? Let's see. ChatGPT or O and O1. I still have preview, but maybe I have the preview from this morning where, hey, the thing that I loved what they said is that, that's okay. So they removed the thing that I had in the morning where like the things, but this is already better. This thought very quickly about, hey, the thing that they mentioned specifically is that it was very annoying to them that when you ask it, hey, it thinks for a long time. It really like ponders the question of hey. So they mentioned that it's around 30. What did you say?
30% or something
30%
like
something
that faster,
right?
Or was it doing less errors? Something like that.
Yeah. Let me see. I mentioned this. I added this in.
It's faster and does less errors. That is
60%. O1 responds around 60% faster than O1 preview. That's amazing. 60% faster than O1 preview. That's quite amazing. And wow, folks, very impressive. Thank you, OpenAI, for releasing. And of course, I think maybe the biggest update of them all for many folks is it's finally multimodal. We're just talking about how the cheapest and the most expensive model altogether. It's finally multimodal. It was able to solve this ridiculous physics thing from Hyun Wang. I think Hyun Wang is the right, yeah. Hyun Wang. This is the ridiculous data center in space question. He was able to solve this fairly quick for 28 seconds. And they also mentioned in passing, they're getting SOTA performance on MMMU and Math Vista, which is also dope.
Oh, there's the O1 system card available now.
Nice. System card?
Yeah, here I can send you the link right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also, maybe it's worth mentioning that artificial analysis, which they do measures on like API speeds and benchmarks on models, they measured just in the past couple of weeks that GPT-4o, O1 Preview, and O1 Mini, they all went 3 to 4 times faster in just like the past couple of weeks. And it seems like my main theory is that OpenAI just rolled out a bunch of production inference on GB200s or something that they got with Microsoft or something. But yeah, there's like significant speed up in multiple model APIs recently.
Yeah, I noticed this in my benchmarks as well, where it got over 100 tokens per second for all.
Yeah, 4.0 went from 70 tokens per second to over 160 tokens per second.
What else in the updates? They mentioned some multimodality. What else? Speed, you said, LDJ. System card, we have system card. There's a lot here to read through. 50 pages of things. They have MLE bench. Agentic task, they test on agentic task. And it doesn't look like O1 is winning on all of them.
Is there any mention of the context size somewhere? Because that is very important if you can give it a lot of information to work on.
No.
Because the reasoning takes a lot of tokens to generate.
No, context doesn't look like it does. Does not look like it does.
Maybe that's a weak point, because if it was 300,000 like we just heard from another model, then it would probably be specified. We'll have to see when it comes out.
All right, what else do we have, folks? We have, I think those are all the news from OpenAI, folks. Let's see in comments what else do we have that's interesting for folks.
Multimodality is cool, because when we have AI classes and the best AI on the classes, imagine what you can do then.
We have classes with AI in Meta. Like I'm walking around and I'm asking a bunch of stuff. I found that like it's very helpful with kids when they ask me a bunch of like questions, like about space specifically. I can just ask. I think we're around like 2 hours. We said we're gonna have a little bit more, but we're around 2 hours with 5 minutes left over. I want a participation from the audience, folks who are watching us, who are talking to us in Twitter Space. $200 a month. Who's gonna pay? Raise your hand, or actually drop it in the comments if you're planning to upgrade to the Pro tier for OpenAI, or you're planning for your company. If you're working at a company, if you're planning to pay. I see, folks. All right, very interesting. Somebody says no one, and then immediately Ray says I'm all in. See, we already have Equinox Gym is more expensive. Folks are already saying. Paying this right now already. So it's very interesting that people are saying that other people are not going to pay, and some people are saying we're already paying. Very interesting.
It's per month. So you can cancel it if you don't need it the next month, and then you can get it again if you want to. Or you can probably use it as a company with one account. So that is cheap then. 10 users of the normal account is already the same price.
Yeah, Brian is also in. This is the Equinox. We have other folks are in. I love it that other folks who don't want to pay, they say no one will pay for this. Folks, there's 300 million users for ChatGPT. 300 million. This is Sam confirmed this yesterday. 300 million users monthly. That's a lot of users. 1% of them will pay. Let's say 1% of them will upgrade. That's a lot of revenue for OpenAI.
Yeah, maybe.
That's insane. All right, we'll see what else they will release. We'll not be live streaming for all of this, but maybe next week we'll cover something. Out of the big things that we wanted to cover and didn't cover, let's run through them for the next 10 minutes. But before this, folks, this show is brought to you by Weights and Biases, and Weights and Biases announced also this week. I would say this is more exciting than O1 full, but obviously it's not. But once the O1 API comes, you will obviously have to build with it. Oh, by the way, they talked about API coming soon. That's also something worth mentioning as well. They talked about API coming soon. API is something that many people are waiting for. Meanwhile, the open reasoning models are offering APIs as well. That's something to wait for. When the API comes, you're going to need to start building with these models, and you're going to need reliability in production. This is where Weights and Biases comes in. Weights and Biases is the sponsor of ThursdAI, and obviously I want to tell you all about our release for this week. This is now our corner, a little bit at the end, but stick with us because we have a little bit more news to cover, including video model and an audio model with this. But before this, we have the corner on ThursdAI that's called This Week's Buzz. So we've covered the OpenAI announcement. We'll recap at the end. But in ThursdAI, we have this corner called This Week's Bugs, where we talk about this week's bug, what happened with Weights and Biases this week. So let's cover this corner super quick. I will not be talking for this corner. We had our announcement. It was live, and I'll just replay this announcement from our CEO, Lucas Bewild.
Welcome to the official launch of W&B Weave. Weave is a developer tool that helps customers build and monitor production GenAI applications. We've been working on it with pilot customers for over a year, and we're excited to announce that it's in GA. LLMs are incredible. You add a couple lines of code and you get real intelligence inside your programs. You can make unbelievable demos. But what happens when you want to get those demos into production? We built Weave to help you confidently get those demos into production by making it easy to create systematic evaluations and visualize traces of all of your LLM calls. Weave works with everything from internal use cases to high traffic applications live in production. Let me show you two real GenAI apps we built using Weave. The first application is OpenUI. OpenUI is an amazing tool that automatically builds websites. You just describe the site you want, or even upload a screenshot, and OpenUI will generate high-quality JavaScript and CSS for a real website that you can actually deploy. Now here's how we built OpenUI. In the development process, we can quickly look through all the websites we generated and get a sense for how well OpenUI is working. Here, we've built a custom set of scores and metrics: relevancy, polish, contrast, and mobile versus desktop quality. We can quickly see which queries give us the best pages and which give us the worst. We can quickly compare the quality of a cheaper LLM to a more expensive one to decide which one to use for a given use case. We've even built end user feedback directly into the app, which is running live on the internet right now. And it logs the feedback back to Weave so we can see in real time which users are happy with their generated web pages and which users are unhappy and improve the product. Our second application is Winston. Winston is a super cool agent that has access to our Gmail, Slack, X, Airtable, and other applications that run tasks for us on our computer. It puts together tools to do useful things for us. For example, I use it to summarize the product newsletters that I get in email and takes those summaries and posts them into Slack for the whole team to read. Winston takes a user input, decides if it's a request, and then decides if it's clear what to do or not for that request, and if it needs to, follows up with more questions. Once Winston knows what to do, it generates a plan, and then it executes that plan. Now, of course, if you have any experience with agents, you know that the plan doesn't always work. And there's quite a lot of mysterious errors that can be tough to debug. Looking at the Weave stack trace, I can quickly see where things went wrong. My generated plan here involves a hallucinated notify tool and a hallucinated filter tool that I don't actually have. The traces here give us the cost and token count of every call that we're making. Most of our calls are fast and cheap, but here we have a much more expensive request. For some reason, this trace cost us 11 cents and used 44,000 tokens and took 18 seconds. What's going on? It turns out that it's sending an entire web page's HTML to GPT. Just converting this website to Markdown gives us exactly the same results, but for half the cost and with only 13 seconds of latency. But to really make Winston powerful, we can't just look at the examples one at a time. We need to be able to quickly iterate on the overall performance. So we built a data set where we feed Winston sample user input and check, is the user actually using the correct tools, and is the input actually asking for a plan? Here, we can quickly see the accuracy of Winston as we iterate on the prompt. We learned that describing the tools in detail actually helps Winston choose the correct tool more accurately. This process lets us quickly try different LLMs and see how well they perform in production. Finally, for a true test of Winston, we need real-life end-user feedback. Here, we've incorporated the ability for the user to directly tell us if Winston's working for them or not, and it's sent back into Weave. At Weights and Biases, we have a ton of experience with how much observability can help AI teams be productive. We've worked with thousands of companies from OpenAI to NVIDIA to Meta to Roche, and we feel so proud of the applications that we've helped them deploy. You can actually get started with Weave with just one line of Python or TypeScript, and already customers like Toyota, Canva, Chanel, and Neuralift are using Weave to build their own GenAI applications. I would love it if you gave Weave a try.
And boom. All right, folks, we're off. This was Weave in GA. I'm so excited. Like, many folks worked really hard for Weave. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me in DMs. We launched Weave in GA. We're going to keep talking about Weave, obviously, a lot. Let's continue with our show because we haven't covered multiple things. I think we'll give, because of the OpenAI stuff, which we already covered, we'll give maybe, let's do maybe like more. We'll see. Let's keep talking because there's a bunch of stuff from Google and there's a bunch of stuff in the open that we want to cover as well. So what is the stuff? Let's take a look. I want to say that one of the main things that I personally love this week is the fact that now we're getting in the open a video model that looks incredible. Did you guys see this? Let's definitely talk about Tencent coming in hot, coming in very hot, especially with the paper. So Tencent released, I don't want to mispronounce this, HYVideo, Tencent. The folks on stream just can see this like absolute insanity. This is a open weights model that is just absolute ridiculousness, high quality. As you guys know, maybe at the end of these 12 days, maybe we'll get Sora finally. Maybe. I don't know. We're hoping. But we talked about this multiple times already. When Sora was announced, Sora was mind-blowing. All of us was like, what the fuck just happened? Our world shifted. Our world changed. We can generate videos now. And since then, we only saw demos of Sora. And since then, we saw Kling, we saw Runway Gen 3, we saw Luma release theirs, we saw just a bunch of models just release one after another. We saw a bunch in the open source. And now we have HYVideo, which I think near Sora level in the open source. This looks like near Sora level. Again, I haven't seen Sora. The only thing close to Sora that we saw is the leak, quote unquote, that we saw a couple of weeks ago, where some frustrated folks released their kind of API keys behind the Hugging Face space, if you guys remember. And some of those videos did look very realistic. So HYVideo is a model that is not only video. This is like the most impressive things about this. I saw this a couple of days ago when it released. It was very late, and I started reading in their paper. And LDJ, I think you'll love this one. I don't know if you had the chance to read like the paper or the report, but besides the high realism for this paper, this model does. So first of all, it does like all of the things that the video model do. It has the dynamics, it has some physics, continuous action shots, beautiful physics, as you guys see, like a cat eating a burger, for example, right here, or licking the burger. I think it generates 720 pixels. Cinematic video. I love specifically folks on the internet loved the hair physics on this specific video, specifically the bouncing hair they loved here. Native camera cuts. This one I like. The camera cuts were like very impressive as well. So the model generates multiple videos with camera cuts, which was also very cool. The thing that I didn't understand about this model is this. So the folks on stream, you probably don't see this, don't hear this, but this model generates audio. This model is also an audio generator, and it also does lip syncing. So these characters are singing, and the lip syncing is also happening with this model. So apps like HeyGen and other character animations, etc. This model that's like video generation also does that, which is like
holy.
Right?
Is, wow. I wouldn't believe it. Wow.
And I didn't understand it first because I'm looking at this UI at the website. It's very simple. They say voice control, voice driven. Yeah. Oh, their website has a bug where you scroll and everything starts playing. And then they also have Foley. So folks in the audio industry know that movies, when you hear movies, they didn't actually record all those sounds in the movie. There's people behind the scenes who take shoes and walk with them near a microphone, like on concrete. So this model does that sounds. Actually, maybe I should share with sound so folks on stream can hear properly. And I do this by sharing a tab. Oh, I can just do this. Okay, you guys can hear. So this sound that you guys are hearing is generated by this model as well. So remember when I said video model? It's not a video model anymore. This is a multimodal generator or whatever. So the prompt for this one is a car engine revs. And the prompt for this one is water is rushing down the stream and pouring. And I'm pretty sure that the video that we're seeing, folks on stream, you can see as well, the video was also generated by this model, including the audio. So obviously when you have video and it's quiet, which is one of the problems, not problems, but with Sora, this model also generates the sound. And then I scroll even more. Wolfram, you're going to love this. This model drives like animations as well. So like expressions and animations. So you take a face. There was other models specifically for this, but like this model drives animation, takes an image, takes an animated video and drives the animation based on that. Let's see. So it takes this one still image, takes this video and generates this thing. There's models that are only this. That are like Sora. There's a competition, I think, in papers with code that only do this. They get like prizes, whatever. And there's one model that does all of these things. And I think it's 17 billion parameters, something crazy like this. And it does more.
So much stuff.
I have no idea how they shoved so many things. It's like a kitchen sink of things. It does puppeteering as well. It has full body puppeteering with hands. And yeah, I see your face and you're like in disbelief. It has a paper as well. I haven't actually tried it. I only tried like video generation once. But like in paper, they showed that, yeah, I don't have a Chinese phone number to try this. But they have a paper on GitHub and it shows an example of a puppeteering thing. And they say that like a video to like image to video is coming soon. So, folks, this model is coming, or I guess, sorry, this model is in open source. It does an amazing amount of things together, and you can try out at least the text to video of this model already on everywhere, Runway and FAL. And right now it takes quite a long time to generate some stuff with it, but it's going to take less time. Obviously, the open source community is going to pick it up. Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on because there's another thing that launched this week was crazy as well, which is FishSpeech 1.5. Let's go, FishSpeech.
I'm so happy I'm done with the benchmarks because I want to try these things.
Yeah, FishSpeech. Let's go. Another thing that launched, which was also crazy, also state of the art, also in the open source. I wanted to highlight this as well before we get off the stream. We love talking about like TTS. We talked about 11 Labs, obviously.
Hey everyone, I'm super excited to share that after months of dedicated work, Fish Audio 1.5 has officially launched, and wow, what an upgrade it is. We've made huge strides in accuracy,
I basically said, like, you know, let them announce themselves. This is generated speech for Fish Audio.
Cross-language capabilities, and emotional expression. Plus, we've added support for 5 new languages. Pretty amazing, right?
That's pretty cool.
The sunshine is really wonderful today. Don't you feel that your mood is also brightened up?
The cool thing about this is VB, a friend of the pod from Hugging Face, Vibov, who's running the TTS arena on Hugging Face, said that's only 500 million parameters and it's trained on 1 million hours of audio, which is huge comparatively. It's huge. And it's low latency, less than 150 milliseconds. Again, I'll say this, I say this every stream. Everything under 300 milliseconds to us humans is instantaneous. And so this could be low latency. That's what we expect from like real-time interfaces. And it's open, non-commercial license, but open for research. And the best part, it's currently ranking number 2. So you guys know, like we talk about LM Arena, comparing LLMs. The same thing happens with TTS Arena. They have this thing where you go to the TTS Arena and then you compare between different things. This model in blind tests of people just listening to different TTSs and say this one's better is beating others. It only comes second to 11 Labs, which I found incredible. And so I just wanted to highlight the fact that we're getting these incredible things in the open source, open weights. So both video is beating proprietary models. HYVideo from Tencent, based on their benchmarks, I think they said 1,500 or so videos, they beat Runway Gen 3 and Luma Labs, Luma Dream Machine 1.6, which just recently came out. This one is beating all but 11 labs, so PlayHT and some other ones, Cartesia, I think, as well. I think it's incredible highlight to the open source community, folks. Don't you agree that we're getting models in open weights? They're beating incumbents in like closed and paid for. You can download and use on your machines, and all in the same week. As we're getting the top tier, super most expensive model in the world that you have to pay for, that's beating GPQA at 90%. I think it's very.
Week. Xmas has come early.
Insane week. I think that's most of what we wanted to like highlight for this week. FishSpeech, Tencent. We covered GENIE just a little bit. Nova, GenCast, I think, is the last one. Yam, I want to hear from you about GenCast because I found it like extremely awesome.
Incredible. I don't know what you need to run it to actually enjoy all of it, but
one TPU apparently.
Yeah, but if let's say that you want to run it on, I don't know, locally or something, you want to train something like this locally.
So let's present it first and then talk about this because I think it's like incredible, just incredible. DeepMind and Google released a paper in Nature about a state-of-the-art weather prediction called GenCast. And unlike their previous weather prediction model, state-of-the-art, which was deterministic, so an algorithm, this one is a generative AI. That's why they call it GenCast. This is a diffusion model. This is the same technology, the same transformer-based, correct?
I think so. The most important thing here to understand is not about the weather, in my opinion. It's more about the using diffusion models auto-regressively. Because if you think about it, when you're diffusing an image, it's like a video. You're like denoising the image step by step. So there is a link between, there is some sort of a link between diffusion models and autoregressive models in a sense. And this paper just show it beautifully. They use the diffusion concept for basically predicting into the future, like step by step, and taking multiple different possibilities of what the future might be, and then just ensemble them together to get a final prediction. And they just pull off the whole pipeline end to end on an extremely hard problem. Like weather prediction is an extremely hard problem. So it just goes to show how the method itself has so much potential for so many things. Yeah, that's what I think about the whole thing.
Yet another thing that's solved with generative AI, which was I found very crazy. European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasts, ECMWF. ENS was the previous state-of-the-art model, and it does 15 days in advance. This model beats that model. And the quality with which it beats this is GenCast was more accurate than ENS on 97% of more than 1,300 predictions in total, and 99% on lead times greater than 36 hours. So like in weather predictions for longer than 36 hours. The thing that highlights this for me though is not this, it's this one. It takes a single Google Cloud TPU v5 just 8 minutes to produce one 15-day forecast in GenCast Ensemble, and every forecast in the ensemble can be generated simultaneously in parallel. Traditional physics-based ensemble, such as those produced by ENS, take hours on a supercomputer with tens of thousands of processors. Hours. So this model, not only being generative AI, etc., not only being 99% like beating that model, the previous state of the art, is taking 8 minutes on a single TPU on Google, which Google has bajillion of. They have them, like, they have an insane amount of TPUs, obviously. They beat the previous model that takes hours on a supercomputer, like a dedicated supercomputer. I found that just like laughably amazing, because this is like a sentiment of everything we talk about here on ThursdAI, where when we launched this podcast unofficially 2 years ago when GPT-4 launched, Greg came in with a paper and draw, and we were like, oh my God, image multimodality, LLMs can see. And now we just talked about this 70,000 picture library costs $9 overall to caption overall. And we just saw that like the most expensive thing in the world can also see now. And now we're seeing that the best weather prediction in the world can beat a supercomputer bound prediction with just 8 minutes on a single TPU as well. It just feels the acceleration is, yeah, Wolfram, I agree with you. Feel the acceleration. I think with this, we can finish ThursdAI for today, folks. I think that let's highlight the multiple things that we talked about today. Obviously, the breaking news started and continued with OpenAI. 12 days of shipments. They're going to do one tomorrow and the next day and the next day. The week of shipping is not new. Companies like Supabase have done this, etc. OpenAI, kudos to them, because everybody's going to tune in and they're going to release probably Sora at the end, hopefully. But what they released today was O1 full, not preview. It looks significantly better than O1 preview, faster as well. They said 60% faster. They also released O1 Pro mode, which looks like they're just dedicating more compute to Pro mode. They also released Pro Tier, which costs $200 a month, with unlimited O1, unlimited voice mode, unlimited a bunch of other stuff. It costs 10 times as much as the previous tier for $20 a month. So those are the updates for OpenAI today. We also talked about 3 new open models, open source models. We talked about DiStRo and Demo from Nous Research, decentralized 15 billion parameter run that's finished running today, and hopefully it will train a model called, I think, Psycho very soon. We talked about with Lucas from RCI about Prime Intellect's Intellect 1 10 billion parameter, also decentralized model that was released recently, that's matching Llama 2. So it's a model that was trained decentralized fashion, but it matches a model that was trained by Meta and released from a year ago. It's insane to say that Llama 2 was a year ago. And then we also talked about Rulia Deep Thought, another reasoning model from friends of the pod, Pharrell, Sendext, and Alpin, who are involved. It's an 8 billion parameter Llama fine-tuned that is learned to think, and the transparent reasoning is at play. They also have an API for folks to play with, and it has test time compute scaling as well. We just now covered GenCast, which is the diffusion model, which we didn't say is the weights and the dataset was open sourced by Google, which is huge. It's huge for the weather community. It's like amazing. Thank you, Google, for open sourcing. Incredible. Another open source today from Google is Polygemma, the Polygemma 2, which is a set of vision models from Google, and we haven't tested them yet. We'll see how well they compare to Pixtral, which currently, based on LMC Arena, Pixtral is the top one. It beats Qwen VL. Based on some metrics. We talked about Amazon releasing a series of foundational models called Nova, which is a bunch of models specifically competitive on price, not necessarily on performance, but fairly competitive as well. We talked about Google GENIE creating playable worlds from a picture, including worlds playable up to 1 minute and characters that can run. Those worlds are 3D. They can remember physics in those worlds. It's quite incredible. We also mentioned the Dr. Feifei's lab that also is building worlds from images as well. We mentioned the Weights and Biases Weave was launched in GA, including some real use cases that Weights and Biases have built, including using Weave for those use cases. And we saw a video and we heard a video from Lucas Bewild, the CEO, analyzing some of the use cases for Weave. We beautifully watched a new video plus model, I don't know how to call this, called HYVideo from Tencent, beating Luma and Runway proprietary models, but also doing puppeteering and audio Foley and like a bunch of other stuff, which is crazy. This model is crazy. Also releasing open source everywhere but in Europe, which we didn't talk about this license, but this license is basically commercial up to 100 million users everywhere but in Europe. That's the license for Tencent video model. And we finished with FishSpeech 1.5, which is a TTS text-to-speech model that sounds very natural, that ends up at number 2 at the TTS arena, just after 11 Labs, which also beats incumbents and proprietary models paid for. And I think that's also awesome. I think overall, it's been an insane week in AI, as always. We're here to cover all of it for you. Today is a little bit longer than usual because we also watched a stream for 15 minutes in the watch party. We had over 2,500 people watch with us today and tune in everywhere. So I want to thank everyone who tuned in. And I want to thank our co-hosts for today, Yam, LDJ, Wolfram. Thank you guys so much for another banger week. Everybody who joined us, I want to thank Weave, our co-host in the Twitter space. Folks, give Weave a follow. The Square profile, Weave is a new handle that I'm in charge of running. So please help me do my job and follow Weave and help me engage with this. And this is ThursdAI for today. If you missed any part of the show, we're going to release this as a newsletter and a podcast everywhere where you get your podcasts with the links and everything that we've shared throughout the show, so you won't miss any part of this. With that, we'll see you next week. Next week is Neuro IPS week. So NeurIPS is one of the biggest machine learning and conferences in the world. I'm going to be live streaming from NeurIPS during the show, so follow me on like LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. And then the show itself will happen from NeurIPS as well. We'll see how I'll manage that, probably from a hotel somewhere. We may just do an audio show next week. We'll see. But the show next week is going to be from NeurIPS. If you're in NeurIPS, come to the Weights and Biceps booth 404. You can find it. It's 404. And yeah, we'll see you next week. This was the ThursdAI for December 5th. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone. How do we do bye-bye? We do bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And